country, and let me tell you something. If you care about your country, read Ludwig von Mises and the 6 lessons of the Austrian Economic School, motherfuckers.
From the streets of Melrose Park to the trading floor of the Merc, he's fought for every dollar he's ever earned. And now, with personal liberty and our system of capitalism under assault in America, he's here to seize back our rights from the government. With a cigar in one hand and a copy of the Declaration of Independence in the other, he's Shaun Thompson. And this is the Shaun Thompson Show.
Some folks are born made to wave the flag. Ooh, they're red, white, and blue.
Very, very interesting topic. Very, very interesting doctor and author. Everybody has seen the unbelievable spike in autism in this country. It is staggering reality. The problem is so many people get used to it that they stop looking for the acorn that started the forest. My next guest isn't one of those people. He's somebody who was born in Georgia, raised in Arkansas, graduated University of Arkansas, then to Nebraska. I spent some money on that college. I really did. Worked more than 27 years at Duke University. He is Dr. William Parker, the name of the book, which comes out Tuesday, Tylenol and Autism, Evidence, Scientific Blunders, and Medicine Gone Wrong. Dr. Parker, how are you?
Shaun, it's a great pleasure to be here. I'm just happy to be here. Thank you.
Well, I have to tell you, you and I are born in what I think is the most interesting generation. I don't just say that because we're all handsome. I say that because we remember when there was honesty, integrity, that wasn't just a virtue shield, but it was actually something that doctors possessed, lawyers possessed. When we were kids, I don't believe you had the people who were so comfortable lying to other people. I believe when you look at this specific topic you're taking on, when you and I were young, going to school in the 70s, 1 in 31,000 kids had autism. Today, it's 1 in 31, right? Or do I have those numbers wrong? Oh, 1 in 10,000, excuse me. 1 in 10,000 in 1977. 1 in 10,000 kids had autism. Today, it's 1 in 31.
That's a number. Yeah, that's a number you hear a lot, and it's probably reasonable. There's a lot of reasons we know that is a reasonable number. In the mainstream right now, the scientific community is really struggling with that because if you accept that number, then you know that we're really missing something.
Or adding something.
Right. Or, yeah, we've missed something that we're adding. Exactly. That's the issue. That's exactly the issue. Yeah.
And the other thing, too, doctor, is when you and I were kids, I remember a doctor coming to my house. I'm sure you do, right? When you were sick?
I think I grew up in sort of a rural area, so we didn't have
no house
doctors.
Calls?
Yeah, I mean, that was the whole doctor concept was, we were out in the woods.
So you dealt with a vet and a farmer.
You could go to the farmer supply store. That was
yes.
it.
Well, you know what's interesting is I remember a doctor coming to my house, Dr. Nagel. I will never forget it. He looked just like Alfred Hitchcock. And he would get out of the car with the black bag, and he would come in and he would tell my mother, he's fine. He's going to be fine. Don't need anything. And he'd walk out of the house. Give you nothing. I found when I had kids, a doctor in a Chicago suburb. Her name was Dr. Choi. May God bless her. I hope she's still alive. She did the same thing. I couldn't help but notice it was in the generation when we had kids that doctors stopped doing that. Not only did they stop doing that, they started to insist something was wrong. They have attention deficit disorder. They have this, they have that, they have this, they have that. And medicines exploded. Vaccines exploded. Psycho drugs exploded. And I can't help but notice the name of your book, Tylenol. So which one is it? Is it the Tylenol drugs? Is it the other drugs? But there has to be a link to something that doctors are prescribing to mothers or babies that is changing things drastically.
Yeah, we're sure that there's more than one thing that's causing a lot of problems, but the thing that is the evidence is piling up. It's a vast amount of evidence. I can tell you a few of the bits of evidence that there's something, and it is Tylenol that's causing a lot of autism, and it doesn't cause it in every kid. The issue is their susceptibility. So it's like a lot of drugs. Some kids are susceptible, some kids are not, and we just missed it. We missed this back in the 1960s when they were doing the initial test to see if Tylenol was safe. And then, of course, so Tylenol was actually, it wasn't called Tylenol back then, but this drug was introduced in 1886. And it wasn't until 2014 that somebody said, hey, let's put it in a lab rat and let's see if it's okay in a very young lab rat. And sure enough, it was not. It caused, even at low doses, it caused these huge, huge problems with brain development. And we just kind of ignored it. So, and in fact, in 2009, we should have been able to look at this drug and say, there's enough evidence. We need to stop giving it to babies and stop giving it during labor and delivery. And we just really, I think by that time, autism, there was already some kind of ideological battle going on with autism when a lot of people believe there is no increase. It's genetic. And we still see that today. So now that the evidence is piled up, more and more evidence, which we talk about in the book, telling you, wow, Tylenol is really causing a lot of this. It's almost too late for doctors to believe because they prescribed it thousands of times and they just can't be responsible for all this damage.
But the reality of what you just said, how many people realize that the drug was created in the 19th century and had become custom for in excess of 120 years before somebody said, hey, let's take a look at it? I mean, that's preposterous, is it not? But it goes to show you the complacency in tradition, especially on something like medicine, doesn't it?
Well, so they sort of tried to look at it around 1970, and what happened was some doctors just got together and they talked about it and said, hey, you know, we're using it in babies now. We're starting to use it in babies. Is there any problem? And unfortunately, they made this horrible assumption because they're not trained in toxicology. They're not trained in pharmacology. They made this horrible assumption that babies are just small adults. And they only looked at liver function because we know that in adults, if you take too much Tylenol, your liver will die. But studies were later done to show that in babies, it's not the liver that dies, it's the brain cells that start to die, and it causes neurological dysfunction. So it's just a horrible series of mistakes. When they finally did look at it in the 1970s, they did it the wrong way.
You know, it's also mistakes, true, but there's a certain ignorance and the arrogance in it that I find really repulsive about modern-day science, as it's called. And I'm not just saying it because that pickle-faced moron named Fauci, who I wouldn't send my dog to Fauci, and I don't even, at the time my dog is gone, but when I used to say that, I didn't even care for the dog that much. She used to bite everything. However, when you see that science today isn't what science was when you and I were kids. In fact, when you and I were kids, doctors and scientists were very proud about the idea. They were always skeptical. They were always probing. They were never satisfied. Back when we grew up, there was an intelligence level that said science can never be solved. It can never really be answered. You can speculate and you can become close, but you can never have an absolute, and that's the beauty of it. It's forever changing. And when it comes to something like this, the beauty of mankind itself is we're all very unique, and it could be something that it doesn't affect you but affects me, and vice versa. Somewhere along the line of the last 25, 35, 40 years, they didn't care enough anymore. They just wanted to make the money, and that's the part that I find nauseating.
Well, so there's this thing called the tobacco playbook, right? The tobacco industry playbook, and they're trying to convince people that no, and they all knew that smoking was causing lung cancer and for 50 years, and they covered it up, and they got they got a slap on the wrist eventually when they figured out that was wrong. But there's something called the Planck principle. It's by Max Planck. He's the guy who basically figured out reality as we know it, founded quantum mechanics. And the Planck principle he stated that in 1950, which is, in paraphrase, science moves forward one funeral at a time. So scientists have always sort of been dogmatic in their approach. And the way I like to say it is every great scientist moves the field forward 10 years and then holds it back for 20. So it's just been a problem with science and in medicine. Once you think you're right, then it's really hard to move the dial on that. I was the guy, my laboratory figured out the function of the human appendix, which is something, that was something Leonardo da Vinci had worked on and was a safe house for beneficial bacteria. But the way we did that was understanding gut function. This is back in the day, and it just took a long time. It took about 15 years for that to get accepted. Oh, this is really what's going on, that our immune system is working with the bacteria. But the point is that we have my lab has faced this before. You find out something is obvious, and you say, well, okay, science does know some things. We know the Earth is not flat. We know it's not the center of the solar system, and we know that this drug Tylenol is triggering autism in susceptible kids. But getting that accepted, that is a challenge because there's so many entrenched people in power, and I run into more trouble from the medical community than I do from industry.
Of course,
honestly. Yeah.
Well, and this is something that I find aggravating beyond the words to articulate it. Because if you truly are a scientist and you truly are a doctor, you would be more interested in hearing what you have to say than anything else. You may not necessarily walk in and say, all right, Dr. William, I may not believe, but I want to hear what you have to say. And then they would hear and they would listen, and they would go through the evidence. After Oxycontin, and when I learned exactly and specifically what that was, I have zero respect for doctors until they earn it. And that's really something that more and more people have to be accustomed to. When you look at modern day medicine in the year 2026 and all of the scandals that have happened, and I mean there are a tremendous amount, and I am not taking the vaccine off the table, of which I really think is diabolical. However, I don't have enough education to argue that with you if you disagree with me. But this specifically I do, when it comes to the fact of their unwillingness to even entertain reality of what you wrote a book on. These should be the people first in line to hear what you have to say. And you're telling me because what? Because they want to make a payment on a boat that they can't put their girlfriend on when their wife is around? That we can't hear the news?
One of the things that we're seeing, and since President Trump made that announcement in September last year, is that so we have more than 30 lines of discrete scientific evidence telling us Tylenol is doing this. But there's been more than 30 papers published saying the president is wrong, that Tylenol is perfectly safe. But every one of those papers, with one minor exception, which is really ridiculous, every one of those papers is latching on to something called a sibling control study. I won't go into the details, but it's just absurd. It's like they haven't even been 2 years in college studying statistics to believe that. And the problem is that all of the the thing is they want to believe. They want to believe the drug is safe because they've been using it for 40 years, and it's been causing problems serious problems for 40 years. They've been using it for a lot longer than that, as I said before. But since major marketing pushes in the 1990s, they've been using it heavily. So they really want to believe this is okay. This is one of those things that we call cognitive dissonance. They're emotionally compromised, and they can't think straight. This is really a straightforward case of you just can't believe that this could even be possible, so therefore you can't even entertain the idea.
So the sales pitch for Tylenol, I find not just full of ambiguity, but snake oil. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. So the sales pitch for 140 plus years, 150 plus years, is it's a pain reliever and a fever reducer. So is an ice bath. Now what?
So is alcohol. Yeah, that's correct. Exactly.
I mean, when you really think about what are you so loyal to? What are the benefits of it? And you tell me, now these are doctors, by the way. This is the other thing. You might be able to pull this off on people who haven't been able to read or think, but then again, isn't that what our society does today? Who can read and think? I'm in Chicago today, and but the reality is the sales pitch doesn't warrant the loyalty. So the only thing that can warrant the loyalty is the profit from the snake oil. They know it. What you said. Take a shot of Jim Beam. You'll do the same thing. Jump in an ice bath. You'll do the same thing. The whole company is a ruse. What do you say?
Well, so the way that they do the advertising is insidious. They show you a picture of a sad, crying baby. They show you a picture of their bottle of drugs, of chemical, and then they show you a picture of the happy baby. So this goes straight, and they know it's effective. That's why they spent $350 million per year advertising it through the 1990s. And this is programming the parents and the physicians. We're human. We're programmable. You're watching these these advertisements made by marketers, and it goes into your subconscious, and you believe, if I'm a good person, I will give this chemical to my baby. And the doctors believe, if I'm a good doctor, I will give it to the mother during labor and delivery, which is horrible, because then the baby's born with it already in its system. A study out of Johns Hopkins shows that you can predict half of all cases of autism just by how much is used during labor and delivery, which is insane. And, of course, the obstetricians, the people doing labor and delivery, they're just ignoring it because they believe in what they're doing.
So, you know what's fascinating? I used to, I really used to love history, right? And we would listen and you would have these conversations about medicine and the advancement of medicine throughout history. And for decades, most people don't know this, to this day, when you look up life expectancy and you look up, say, the life expectancy, the year 1901, they include wars. They include the Civil War. They include a variety of different wars that took place around the world. That's included in the life expectancy. If you back out wars, murder, accident, death, and you look at Europeans and you look around the world, I feel, I could be wrong, I've just done some studies on my own with the evil Google machine and some other search engines. If you can back those out, I don't think, not only have we not made advancements, and I say this because I have done it with Obamacare. If you look at American Obamacare, the life expectancy is 6 years less after Obamacare. But if you look for, you could go back the 100 years, 105 years. I see no evidence that all of today's medicine and technology has increased life expectancy if you take out wars and murder. This is a fascinating study that I don't think has been done properly, aside from me while driving, smoking a cigar, talking to Google.
You know, a lot of scientists, so there's a couple of things I know that, I know the field, I know everything that's known about it. You ask me about acetaminophen and brain development, I can tell you pretty much everything there's known. And a lot of scientists, they get really good in one thing, but then they sort of get cocky and they start talking about other things. And as far as life expectancy, I am no smarter than your average Joe.
All right.
Wouldn't that I've never looked at it.
Wouldn't that be an incredible barometer to go back 100 years and say Bologna, Italy, and take a look at these people in Bologna, Italy 100 years ago, look at them today, look at Russia, look at them today, and then look at America. And I say this to you because we spend the most money of the top four combined than anybody. There are two countries, you know this, two countries where you can advertise pharmaceuticals, and only two countries, America and New Zealand. When you talk to anybody who's in Europe and you look at anybody, they don't know any of this stuff with medicine, antidepressants. It's very, very, very rare. If you take some of the communities that are sequestered in America, the Amish and others, they don't have a tenth of these issues. So ultimately, all of our modern day progress seems to be killing us. What do you think?
Well, I mean, so there's some things that are really good. So, for example, if you have appendicitis, you can go in, they'll cut out your appendix, and if they don't do it, you got a 50% chance of death. Or, in the old days, if you broke a bone and the bone was sticking out, you're pretty much going to die of an infection. And,
sure.
And they can fix. So there's some things that they're really good at. I mean, I think the way I've heard it expressed is if you have some kind of immediate life-threatening problem, our system is really good. But if you look at chronic disease, our system is horrible.
And look at the money we spend and the drugs and all of it. It's very, very interesting. But I love the fact that you took on this topic because this could not have made you popular at the country club. Are you one of those country club doctors?
Well, so I'm a PhD in chemistry, so I'm one of those, and my study team has toxicologists and pharmacologists and neuroscientists. So when my lab was pretty renowned, we had done a lot of stuff. You can look me up on Google. We're all over the place. And my lab was funded at Duke University. I've been there 25 years.
Years.
Yeah, well, I had it when things went south, when things started to happen that were bad. I'd been there 25 years. And we published our first big paper on Tylenol, and all of a sudden, bad things started to happen. and eventually, and it was after my lab, which was funded, was shut down. I found out that the president and CEO of Duke University was on the board of directors for a little company called Johnson & Johnson, which is the manufacturer at that time of Tylenol.
Yeah. That's like calling his wife ugly or him fat. You did real good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very interesting. Well, if it's any consolation, I got $50 says she is ugly. But I love the fact that you took on this challenge and wrote this, because this isn't about now. This isn't about your boss or even if we can make our mortgage payment. This is a book that maybe 10 years, 20 years, 50 years from now, somebody can pick up and avoid a real problem of having their child with autism. So I love the fact that you were courageous enough to do this. I really, really do. And I can't wait to get the book that comes out Tuesday. Do you prefer any place specific you want us to go and buy the book, Tylenol and Autism?
I mean, it's at Barnes & Noble, it's at Amazon, wherever people prefer to shop. And I think the publisher, Skyhorse, sells it also. They really like if you go there to sell it. And, you know, the bottom line is if people are confused because they look it up on the Google AI and it's going to give you a pat answer of no, there's no connection, which is absolutely wrong. If you want to see why it's wrong, and you want to see how how everything got completely derailed and sidetracked, it's all in the book.
All right. So now I'm going to ask you to do some, give you a little homework for the next time we talk. I was in Arizona when I was a kid looking for a girl I never knew. And I got lost there for about a month. And I was reading on the back of a menu off of Route 66 that tobacco, the Indians believed it was medicine. So I smoke about 8 cigars a day now. And I feel very good. I don't have a cavity or an ache, a pain. I can still do my 50 in the morning and 50 at night. I think those Indians were right about that and perhaps the loincloth, and that's it. Have you ever done a study on the health benefits of cigars?
You know, one of my colleagues back in the 1990s was looking at secondhand cigarette smoke and the baby's development, but I've never worked on tobacco. I worked on, interestingly enough, I worked on intestinal worms and their benefits, and then I also began to work on Tylenol.
I got about 6 guys. 3 of them are degenerate horse players. They would be willing to put up, I don't know, $100, maybe $200 to get you started down this path, should you ever want to take on the tobacco and the benefits of the health, all right?
All right, thank you.
Thank you
Shaun.
very much. I appreciate the time. The book is Tylenol and Autism. Dr. William, thank you so much for joining me. Always a pleasure. I can't wait till the next one. We'll see you around the corner. Thank you.
Thanks, Shaun.
We'll be back with your calls and comments.
What if everything you've been told about government, health care, poverty, energy, and even science is a carefully constructed lie? In Shaun Thompson's new book, What If It's All a Lie? Shaun Thompson dismantles the myths at the core of modern America. This is the book the ruling class doesn't want you to read. And once you do, you won't see the world the same way again. Order your copy today at ShaunThompsonShow.com/book.
Picture this, bottom of the ninth, bases loaded, 2 outs, and the IRS is on the hill throwing nothing but heat and chin music. Back taxes, bank levies, wage garnishments, tax liens. You're down in the count. Time to call